Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly and maintenance video for you on this little guy right here. This is the Hogue Deka. What we're going to go ahead and do is, to start off, we are almost directly on center, maybe slightly favoring the show side. Not by a whole lot. Next up, this is using the Hogue Able lock. Able lock, of course, being remarkably similar to your Axis-style sliding bar locks, as evidenced out there in the world. But this is a Hogue knife, and yeah, that's interesting. And then a little tiny bit of bar stick on there, but I suspect we'll be able to do something about that as we take this apart. How do we take this apart? Well, okay. What we're going to do, actually, first off, this is not how you disassemble and maintain this knife. If you are just doing maintenance, you do not need to remove these 18,000 screws here. There is no need of that in practical life. In reality, all you need to do is remove the pivot screw, which I am doing right here. Assuming that's not free spinning. It is not. Wow, that's thread locked down. For what it's worth, this knife is not coming to me directly from Hogue. This knife is coming to me from my buddy Brooke, who ended up selling this knife. And so I ended up buying it. But okay, let's go ahead, and I'm going to just off camera here, I'm going to array these screws in the same basic pattern that they come off the knife. The reason I'm doing this part at all, in reality, I think all you need to do here is take out the pivot. But the reason I'm doing this is for demonstration purposes. What do the liners look like? What does the inside of this knife look like? Is this full liners? Is this partial liners, etc.? This is more just for your viewing pleasure, if you will, so you best be pleasured by it. Okay, back at the ranch. But when I lift this scale off, what we see here is that this thing is grody. Super duper duper grody in here. As a result, I might just do the full takedown on this. What would that require? All that would require is pushing through the pivot, which I'd have to do anyways. So in practice, what you should be able to do, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the full disassembly. I'm going to do the full clean out in here, because the thing that's kind of bugging me here is that this area up here, with this Axis bar, there's a fair amount of gunk and grit up in there. That's not going to come out. So if you want to do this sort of the easy way, damn, I have to remove the clip to take out that screw. Or at least remove one of the clip screws and then rotate it out of the way or something. Oof. Yeah, there we go. Pop that screw out, and then, so that'll go on the other side. But if you want to see the easy way to do this, go ahead and check out my disassembly of the Hogue Knives Ritter Mini RSK, where I do the simple approach, where I just treat the knife like an integral, basically, and pop that all the way through. Use this little pivot tool here, and try and push this pivot through. There we go. And you can see that as I do this, this entire package comes out of the knife. And come on, pivot. When this pivot finally does pop out, however, we are going to see the blade come loose. So I am grabbing this in such a way that the blade is under control, even as, whoa there. Okay. So we have popped this loose, and we just wait for the pivot to get the rest of the way through. Come here, you little pivoty bastard. Okay. Beautiful. We are cleaned up. So let's go ahead and do the full takedown on this guy. We're going to start off by, and by the way, if you're curious about any of the tools I'm using, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools, and you will find a link to every damn thing that I've used in my disassemblies. So there we go. Clean off the blade, get that out of the way. I'll clean off these two washers here. Nice, big, thick phosphor bronze. Nice. Nicely polished up. Beautiful. Like I said, I can't vouch for this being exactly in the condition this came from Hogue in, but that's okay. For what it's worth, the action was quite nice. Is quite nice. But yeah. Okay, so to take apart a piece like this, what you want to do is you remove the... Oh, yeah. Yep, that's a thing. You remove the Omega springs from their little, it's these guys back here, the Omega, because they look kind of like an Omega symbol, I guess, a little bit. But anyways, if I were flexing, I'd be wearing my Omega, but at the moment, it'd need to be Casio springs, right? But anyways, you take these out, you wash it off, clean that off real quick. I'll also use this as an opportunity to wipe off the lock bar a little bit here, which is some kind of DLC or another. And there we go. I'll wipe off the pivot while we're doing this. And actually, while I'm thinking about wiping off pivots, the pivot came from the factory with this guy with a fair amount of thread locker. So what I'm going to do is just screw it into this piece of towel here, and that'll help me get and dislodge some of that thread locker out of there. That'll allow me to put in a fresh batch of a slightly less aggressive thread lock and work it out fine. By the way, Hogue, I want to give some recognition to, right? Hogue was a company that for a long time that had a warranty that was really bad on paper, even if they did right by their customers, generally, is my understanding, in that it prevented disassembly. You know, if you take the knife apart, you're dead to us. That's not what it said, but you know, that's how it read. We'll put it that way. You voided your warranty by taking the knife apart. However, they have recently, in the last, I think, 6 months or so, completely done a 180 and changed their warranty policy to a perfectly reasonable version, which reads along the lines of, if you take your knife apart and put it back together, right, there's no freaking problem. Your warranty is completely and totally intact. It's not even it's not even an issue. However, if you screw your knife up by taking it apart, then that's on you, which is perfectly reasonable, right? If you screw something up, that's on you. That's how personal responsibility works in the world, right? Well, should work. But anyways, so I love very, very much that they listened to their customers and they made that little fix there. Because, you know, even if they were always treating people right before, it's very nice to see, wow, that had a nice acoustic to it. Acoustic? Had a nice resonance, I think is the technical term. Says the member of the Acoustical Society of America. Anyways, I digress. Anyways, that was a nice thing for them to do. One thing that's worth noting is that this is jimped up here, which is cute, which makes me, even though that jimping is not exposed, I suspect that they're reusing this part in several other knives, and so they want that jimping to be there for some other model, which is fine. Nice optimization there. Okay, so next up, here's how we got to put this thing back together. What we do to start with is we put this, and actually before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use knife pivot lube here for the washers on this guy, and I'll go ahead and I'll put some lube on the inside of there, and actually I'll just use the applicator here to spread it around a little. That way everything is sort of fully lubricated. I'm not adding more here, or at least that's not my intent. I'm just using the side of the applicator. Okay, next thing, put the stop pin in place there. Now what I do is I need to get this threaded back through there. And so what I'll do is I'll kind of hook this side of the liner with the Omega spring. And now I slide this whole thing up into here. Great. Now at this point, what we can do is seat the first Omega spring. So by seat, I mean that I want this little spring here to go into this little hole area. Nice beefy Omega springs, by the way. And same thing over here. Beautiful. Now we have this whole package ready to reinstall, basically. And the way that I will do that is by screwing in this side first. Because I did that. Like I said, this part, all of this stuff that I'm doing right here is not going to be super crucial for you in your, is that T8? That is T8. Okay. I instinctively grabbed a T6, but nice. But it's not going to be super crucial, and I'm using a little bit of blue Loctite on a stick here. But for today, with the little bits of crud that I found in there, seemed like a fair approach. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure to make sure that everything goes in there. Beautiful. And let's go ahead and put that in place. And now we have the liner is now fixed again to the knife. The spacing is a little bit off and whatnot, but that's fine. That'll get adjusted as I screw everything back together, and then I'll put this clip screw back in place. Frankly, I didn't need to do what I just did there. I mean, I don't need to do most of it. I don't need to be filming videos about pocket knives wearing a Batman mask. I mean, if you want to start asking questions, there are a lot of questions you can ask, right? But nonetheless, yeah. Nonetheless, it does make me feel a little bit better to get in there and clean out all those little areas here. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install those two screws in the middle there to grab the liners. This might be a little trickier. I might need to brace it from the inside if the spacing isn't quite where I need it to be. Let's get this screw in there and see if I can kind of grab. My goal is to grab that liner, and it's not quite in there yet. So I'll just use this little, I'll just use this little tool, he says. There we go. My goal here is just to get this liner seated and then braced, so that way I can get some bite with this screw. There we are. Perfect. Okay, so now that screw's got a little bite to it. It's in. It's pulling that liner tight. I'll go ahead and I'll install the other liner screw while I'm at it here. And take it from there. Hogue is a company I'm excited about lately. And the reason I say that is myriad, right? To start with, the warranty thing is not a big deal, but it is a big perceptual deal, right? It feels, and by the way, it's worth noting that the liner screws are shorter than these top backspacer screws. So don't, mess those up. Don't switch those around. But anyways, the warranty thing was just a way, it was like a love letter from Hogue to the American knife, well, to the worldwide knife consumer for that matter. I'll take that any day of the week. And given that matters more to me than to most, given that I'm a big advocate for being able to maintain your tools safely while having the manufacturer stand behind you. But not like Hogue is standing behind me right now. They are not in the room. I do not need to blink twice. But more importantly, we are in a time right now where we need, in my estimation, I am very excited by the prospect of having more great knife makers operating here in the U.S. That's part of it. Might some people, oh my God, but the thing is, I want to support my home team, so to speak. I do. Actually, let's take a different tack with this. I'd like to see manufacturing in my home country, as I'm sure you would in yours, right? Just picking up a little bit of that lubrication there. Right now, I want to make sure that the washers are in place. Now, here's how I'm going to put this back together. In practice, all you really needed to do was to push out this pivot through the back side of it there, and then leave all the other screws in place. You could do this with unscrewing just one screw, but I went a little more complicated. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little pivot tool here, slip it through the middle there. I'll use the bigger side here. And that should align everything for me. Pull back on the lock there. Beautiful. Okay. So what this has now done is it's put everything into alignment for me, which is great. Now what I can do is align the D shape of the pivot with the D shape of the bottom of this guy, and then hopefully, let me lubricate the pivot just a little bit here. He says, over-lubricating the pivot vastly. Although in this case, actually, the lubrication on the pivot is doing two things for us. Not only is it going to allow the blade to swing freely, but it's also going to allow the pivot to slide home pretty quick. But if I am, if this goes well, what I'm going to be able to do is just push this pivot straight through on this tool, basically, and then everything should snap right into place here. Okay. Making sure that I disengage the lock bar there. Okay, that's popped through one layer. I think I'm losing my 2, 3. So the first snap you heard was it going through the first phosphor bronze washer. The second snap you heard was it going through the second one, going through the blade itself. The third was going through the other washer. We are now good to go. All I need to do at this point is put in that pivot that I cleaned out a little bit earlier. Put a little bit of thread lock on there. And now we tighten that on down. And then I will put a little bit of lubrication right on this back of the blade here. What this will do is allow that bar to slide more freely along the back there. Oh, yes. Oh, ho, ho. Baby, that's good. Sorry, that sounded wrong. Yeah. Anyways, that's good. That's real good. And the reason I say that's good is because that's just without... I'm going to see if I can loosen this up even the slightest bit more to get just a... Do we have any play here? No. Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. I'm going to rotate the axis bar the able bar very slightly here. There we go. Centering is dead on, if not slightly favoring the show side, which is where we started. Action is good to go. All right. There we go. We did not manage to solve that little bit of stickiness to the lock, and I hope that a little bit of lubrication would do that trick, but it doesn't appear to, and that's okay. We'll see whether that wears in over the next, as I'm carrying it here. But for the most part, I think we're good to go, and I'll go into some first impressions for you on the knife. My first impressions here are pretty positive. The design is obviously going to be polarizing for a lot of people. The design has some... particularly this kind of compound blade thing. The compound grind on this provides you with a stronger edge down here and a thinner edge out here, and I gotta say, it is a thin edge. This knife is ground to cut. This area up here has a very thin grind, and it's out of 20 CV, so it's a good steel here. But this is actually, frankly, one of the compound grinds I appreciate a little bit more. Sometimes you'll see the reverse, where the thin part is close and the thick part is out here, and that makes sense, I guess, if you're stabbing into things where you want a thicker tip. But I like this kind of... This gives you a really nice slicey knife, and the stock on it is very thin too, by the way. So this ends up being a very, very nice cutting tool. Ergonomically speaking, it's pretty damn good. I feel like I'm very far away from the cutting edge when I'm holding it this way, and there's not really a choke-up version there for me, but that is what it is, I suppose. There's a lot of gription coming off of this little bit of milling here. You can see this little Peacock G10 or whatever it's called. You've got this little extra milling here, making this, combined with the jimping at the top there and these finger grooves, a pretty credible Vaseline factory sort of knife. Action on it is super smooth. Big fan of that. See, the stick is actually reducing a little bit as I'm using it here. But there's that. But yeah, overall, my general feeling here is the handle on it, and the clip is very, very shallow carry for what it's worth. They could have gone with like a deeper carry clip there, but the ergonomics on it are pretty good. So, and I think a deep carry clip would have been a little bit more problematic ergonomically speaking. So I think I get why they went that route. But regardless, this is a neat little piece. The big question here, I think, is going to be the design. Do you like the design? If you like the design, then great. If you don't like the design as much, you might consider going with like the Mini RSK or something like that. That might be a little bit more interesting to you. But yeah, so anyways, there is that. That's my kind of first impressions of it. Overall, pretty nice knife, and provided you like the design, especially with this blade, the blade, then this could definitely be a good tool for you. So anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.